It's worked so far, but we're not out yet.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Welcome to the Bar Exam. I'm Adam Barr, and I'll be your host and moderator. I'm here because I want to know what's on your mind. I've been a teacher for 23 years, and I'm here to listen to my students and find out what they're thinking on a variety of topics. Let's get to it and subject these kids to the Bar Exam. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bar Exam. This is part 2 of my LGBTQ plus Happy Pride podcast. Part 1 was with my students where I teach at Mahonison High School in upstate New York, and I thought it would be interesting to talk to students from a nearby school, Niskayuna High School, the district that I live in, which is also seen as possibly a more affluent community than we have in Rotterdam. Basically, I'm going to ask the same questions, and if you go back and listen to part 1, you can see the difference between one high school and another. Today I have with me
Avi Barr. I'm the vice president of Niskayuna High School's Visibility Club.
And Logan Modan. I'm the president of Niskayuna's Visibility Club.
What's great, and this will get to a question later on, is the fact that the two of you just said you're part of a visibility club, something we are severely lacking in the Mahonison Central School District. And I think the club in the middle school led to a bunch of controversy we talked about last week with a school board member. Let me just start off, Avi, with what pronouns do you use?
They, them.
And Logan, what do you use?
I use he, him.
And then at what age did you feel or know you were either gay or not in the body you were supposed to be in?
Astoundingly, I'd say I first felt like I was a little different when I was 6, but back then I didn't really know these things existed.
When I was 4, apparently I used to run around my house and I would yell that I was a lesbian. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's that unusual, even from the students I talked to before, about realizing at a young age when you're forming your idea of self. I don't think it's that big a deal. And then within Niskayuna High School, how large would you say your LGBTQ plus community is?
I mean, in the circles of friends that I'm with, I'd say it's 1 in 6 people, but that's probably not really the case for the entirety of the school.
I would agree. I think the people that I hang out with are largely part of the LGBTQ community, but when I go to other classes, then I realize, oh, that's not really the case. There are not that many gay people at this school.
Well, even working, Avi, with a you said of 1 in 6, do you feel then every time you're in a class, you feel that there's somebody part of the LGBTQ plus community in that class with you?
I'd say in most of my classes, that may be in part because of the classes I take, but also I'd say, yeah.
That's an interesting thing I hadn't thought about. The classes you take might be different, or maybe people who are more of an honor student would be more self-attuned or self-aware. Do you feel that the people who tend to be out or openly in the community are in, if we wanted to say, tracking better classes or more honor students?
I'm in a lot of music classes, and in those music classes I experience a lot of diversity within the LGBTQ community.
I don't know, I think that's great, or you hear about it in the arts, but I don't want to fall into a stereotype that if you're in the community, then you have to be in the arts and not in the other classes. How would you describe the culture towards the LGBTQ plus community in Niskayuna High School?
Most people that are not in the community are very much tolerant and accepting, but there is a significant part of the population that is not so accepting, and they are unfortunately quite vocal about it.
It's easy to think that you're very accepted at the community, but then now and then you'll just meet one person who will completely change your view because they're well, Avi said, they're so loud about it, and it's hard not to just focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, at our activities fair at the beginning of the year, it was not 10 minutes before people were walking by calling us slurs, which is an interesting experience.
I like what you had said or used the word tolerance and then acceptance. I'm really big into the word acceptance and I hate the word tolerate. I know, Avi, you are very particular in your language and people's use of language. How do you feel about the word tolerance compared to acceptance?
I think acceptance is more a matter of seeing them as equal. I think tolerance is more like I won't be openly upset about it. Like, for example, I tolerate a Monday. I accept and welcome a Saturday.
I actually think that was a fantastic analogy. I'm definitely going to have to use that one. Now, I guess for both of you, do you feel safe in school?
It depends on where I am. Again, not to do this stereotypical arts program, but
It's totally okay. Not even use stereotypical. If there are safe communities or safe spaces, then that's a great thing to feel. All four of my students in my school immediately gave a resounding no when I said, do you feel safe in school? And I'll ask later on, but for you to say, all right, I have a community where I do feel safe, I think is fantastic. Sorry for interrupting.
it's okay. Yeah, in my arts classes in the music wing, I feel comfortable, but when I go elsewhere, I'm a little not so okay with being super as openly gay and queer as I would be in those classrooms.
I would agree with that. I'd say in my individual classes, like Logan, I take music classes and a lot of my electives are like humanities and language related. So in those specific classrooms when we're in the room with the door closed and I'm with a lot of my friends, I do feel safe. And among most of my teachers, I feel safe. But when I'm walking through the more common spaces, like for example, what we call our student commons, and I hear slurs being tossed around and I see swastikas carved into tables, which is unfortunately common, then I really don't feel safe.
Just throwing this out there, if you're listening and you hear some dog barking in the background, we just wanted to add a little spice to this podcast and invite a little furry friend in today. Do the two of you feel that you have allies in the school, whether it's faculty or other students?
Yes, I think I would speak for Avi when I say that our visibility advisor, Mrs. Oppenheimer, is a number one ally at the school, and I feel very comfortable with her.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think she is the true ally in addition to, unsurprisingly, some of the art teachers. There are some teachers that are a little bit open about not being so accepting, but I'd say there is still a good chunk of students and staff that I feel safe around and good with.
Then, do the two of you feel safe to express who you are in school?
Again, it depends on where. Like, in my individual classes, for example, I took a psychology class with Mrs. Oppenheimer. I felt great. I would say whatever I felt because I knew it was okay. Same thing in my history class because, again, I had a great teacher and there were good kids in that class. But, again, depending on the day, if things are going unpleasantly in student commons, for example, there have been days where I've been like, oh, I have XYZ class, I shouldn't wear my pride flag shirt, or walking through Crossroads and being like, oh, I should tuck my Star of David in, because I know there's people that are not so okay with that. So I'd say, again, it really depends where and who I'm with.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, do you feel safe to express who you are in school?
Sometimes. More not so often than I do feel safe to express. I feel sort of scared to be completely who I actually am I would say that most of the ways I act have much to do with my queerness and being Jewish, and it's not easy to feel completely safe when those are your main identities.
Yeah, I think that sort of energy goes with all of the students and staff. For example, like in my psychology class, we would be critical of things that needed to be criticized, and my teacher knew that there would be people who are not okay with us saying how we feel, and like in those discussions, the first thing she would do is go over, like, close and lock the door, because there is still a good chunk of the school that is not okay with people expressing themselves in really any way.
Do you feel, piggybacking on that, have you felt like you could tell your teachers, all of your teachers, just not specific teachers, I would prefer these pronouns, or this is how I would like you to address me?
All of my teachers, I'd say no.
No, I'd not feel comfortable telling all of my teachers about pronouns or how I'd like to be addressed.
Wow. Do you think there's a difference, and I hope I word this properly, between how our biologically female LGBTQ plus students feel and are treated compared to our biologically male students?
I would say certainly, because even within the community, like somebody who is assigned male at birth and gay is treated differently than someone who is assigned female at birth and lesbian. Going on that same vein, people that are trans feminine have a different experience than people that are trans masculine. So I'd say overall, yes.
I don't really have anything to add to that. I agree completely.
It goes great then, Avi, what you just said into my next question. Do you find that within the LGBTQ plus community, do you find it accepting, or do you find that there are multiple cliques even within the community, sort of like you just said? I know at Mahonison it was, well, this community doesn't accept trans people, and this group doesn't accept, bi, we're gay. So how do you feel in Niskayuna?
I think there are sects and cliques of queer people who might act more outwardly, like stereotypically queer than others, and those groups of people definitely get divided. People who might dress more alternatively or have stronger opinions are separated from people who most people might not even know that they're gay.
Yeah, going off of that, I'd say there are people in the district who, like, I've seen post things on their stories where, there was one incident last year where I saw somebody who I know is LGBTQ post something on their story that, discrimination is because we're too loud about it. And even within the community as a whole, for example, there's something called pansexuality, which is, attraction regardless of gender, which is sort of under the umbrella of bisexuals. There's a lot of people that will claim pansexuality is biphobic. There's a lot of cisgender queer people that think transgender is not a real thing and are openly transphobic, even will leave T out of the acronym. But I'd say that level of divisiveness isn't really present in the Niskayuna High School queer community that I've noticed.
Do you feel that your school provides resources or a safe space for you? And we will talk about visibility in a moment. But overall, do you feel that there are resources that the school provides for you, or do you feel that you have safe spaces?
Besides visibility, no.
Yeah, no.
That seems to be, I know it's just 2 schools, but a pretty common trend. It's kind of sad in today's world. I mean, at one time, our school, in the high school, because I was the advisor, had what we called the Gay Straight Alliance. I think they have that in the middle school, which is what caused all of our school board drama. Can you tell us about visibility? Is that basically the one club that is the umbrella club? Do we have it in our middle schools? Tell us as much or as little as you can about visibility at Niskayuna, and maybe even what your goals are and what you do within the community.
There is a visibility club at Van Antwerp. I'm not so sure about Iroquois. In the middle school visibility, I'd say the goal was mostly to provide a safe space for everybody. It was really just a hangout session. We didn't do much activism, but at the high school, we aim to provide more education for students, and we do presentations, and we as well as making sure everybody has a safe space. But it's a lot of informant.
Yeah, I'd say in recent years especially, we in our high school visibility club have taken an emphasis on education and presentations and such. Mainly because in the New York State curriculum and even with our own individual teachers, anything queer related is really not taught at all. And we think that the queer students at our school have a right to know how and why their civil rights came about and their history of their movement and their identity. So we try to provide that education. From what I've heard, I wasn't in the middle school club, but from what I've heard, it was more of a hangout session.
That's what our original Gay Straight Alliance, it felt like it was just a hangout session. And I like what you just said, Avi, on my last podcast towards the end. One of my students talked about getting educated and understanding even where did pride come from. You know, when you hear just the word Stonewall, what does it mean? That we should get educated. Do you bring people in from the outside? Within my own classroom, our school counselors, I used to bring the Trevor Project into my room because they knew that was a safe space and I would bring them in for my students. Have you brought in outside sources such as the Trevor Project or other people to speak, whether it's in health classes or social studies classes or any class you can get them into? Have you ever done that?
There was once in middle school when I can't remember the person's name. I just remember they had cool pants. And they came in to speak to our visibility club about their struggles with queerness and mental health. But other than that, no.
Yeah, in our club meetings, we do like provide resources and information relating to groups like that, like Glisten or the Trevor Project, to give, I'd say, our club members like a place to find resources and further education, but we've never really brought them into the club.
No, I guess this is a two-part question. Have you either of you ever had or are in a relationship currently, and do you think it's easy to have a relationship in high school?
I've never been in a relationship.
I've been in a couple relationships, most of them queer, and I'm actually currently in a relationship right now. In high school, it's hard to have a relationship, and it's especially hard to have a relationship if you're queer, because there's like 15 queer people in a school. For somebody to like you, let alone be queer, is hard to find. And it's also hard to be out like a normal couple would be in school. You can't like hold hands.
Yeah, if you listen to the other podcast, the same thing they talked about. One couple, one wants to be more open with their relationship and the other one maybe not so comfortable. They even talked about how some teachers know they're in a relationship and some teachers don't, and how one couple, they do get looked at when they're holding hands. And I like what you just said, the community is small. It's sort of like how many people within your own high school are there to date?
I think, at least when I was in middle school, there was like your quote unquote locker room talk, and people were just idiots. Like gay obviously was used as like an insult or a joke, even among a lot of more immature high schoolers. So I think that sort of creates an environment where, like, I know that if I were in a queer relationship, I would probably be selective as to how openly and where I sort of show that relationship for safety reasons.
Yeah, even the word toxic masculinity showed up last week, that there's just so much of it, that there is the idea of you want to be in a relationship and you want to be with someone you care about, but you also want to feel safe in that relationship. Then are the two of you looking forward to, whether it's college or being outside of school and being able to find a larger community to be a part of?
I am going to college in the fall. I'm going to Oberlin, which has a very, very, very large LGBTQ community, and I'm very excited about that.
We have had officers in the past also go to Oberlin that have made the same "I can't wait to be with all the other gay people" comments. I would say yes, I'm looking forward to going to college and being with other queer people. Granted, I'm only going to be a senior next year.
Is there anything else that the two of you would like to share that you thought of while I was asking these questions? Anything you want to get out to the world about what it's like to be in school? Maybe how people could help, as you are both members of Visibility. Like, what could the community do to help? Or what would you like to get out there?
I think just educate themselves. In the school, it's really fallen on us to do all of the education. As I mentioned, like, teaching queer history to these kids has been on us. Last year, for the health classes, they had absolutely no resources or information whatsoever relating to LGBTQ students. And unfortunately, it fell on me and the other officers to make a presentation. We had to go into the health classes and miss our own classes to present it to them. And I think it's really just an issue when, like, it shouldn't be our job to sacrifice our own time and miss our own classes to educate everybody else. That is the teacher's job. That is the school's job.
I'd like to add to that. I also had to do a health presentation for the LGBTQ community. It was the one that my teacher gave me to revamp was extremely outdated, and I spent probably about 3 hours on it.
So you're saying you as students actually went in to educate other students?
Yes.
Yes, and the teachers, oh, she made such interesting comments.
Yeah, that's horrible. I mean, I'm going to say that outright as a teacher who is hopefully seen as an ally. That is ridiculous. That you're going to put students who are in a marginalized group to begin with and probably feel like everybody is already forming slurs in their head and tell you to go out and educate people. That's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm calling you out.
In the first one I did, we also tried to incorporate like intersectionality because that is a factor into LGBTQ issues that is also not taught at all. And I think it ended with the teacher of the class making a joke about quote unquote not playing nice with the Indians, referring to Native Americans, and just the students in the class just looking generally disinterested or making weird comments. We did not do it again this year.
The students in the class that I taught this year were all on their phones and nobody cared about the presentation at all.
I'm going to give kudos to the both of you to be willing to do that. I mean, I know many students who just don't want to get in front of a class and do a presentation, let's say on French in a room of French, and to put you in front of non-classmates, I think that's a huge burden to put on a student.
Yeah, it's even come down to the administrative level. For 2 years straight, we've been having to have regular meetings with our administration, formulating like plans of action because they themselves did not make any effort to give us gender-neutral bathrooms or changing rooms or any resources. It again came on us having to take time out of our days and missing our classes to go in and meet with the administrators and be like, you need to give us these resources. And even then, they tried to beat around the bush and lie to us and make it as difficult as possible.
So you don't see your administrators as a safe place. You see it like pro forma. All right, well, we're going to have a meeting with you and we're going to listen to you, but they're not really open to change.
Yeah, I'd say the principal at our school is especially someone I don't feel comfortable around. He, I know, is like far-right conservative. When we mention some of these issues in the meetings, he barely even looks up from his phone. He's usually just sending emails when we try to talk to him. Logan, you joined us for our meetings this year. What did you think?
I think we end up being the very responsible role. It almost seems like we're talking to children. I feel like I have to remain completely composed and spell out everything for them because they don't understand anything.
And even after that, we kept repeatedly having to hound them and email them and be like, did you do this? Did you do this? It was like trying to get a 4-year-old to finish their broccoli. It was such a pain.
Wow. Again, is there anything else you'd like to share? This is your open, hopefully safe space to share.
If you're not a member of the LGBTQ community and you have a resource like our school has the Visibility Club, show up to one of the meetings. It doesn't matter if you're not in the community. Most often we'll have we have queer news every week where we'll talk about a good or a bad thing that's happened in our community in the week. And even if that's the littlest amount of education that you get, it's still education. And even though we're providing it for you, maybe that gives you an opportunity you want to go and explore more yourself.
And if you are an LGBTQ student and either your school doesn't have a visibility club or the environment means that you are uncomfortable to go, I would strongly recommend, if you have the time, to research queer history and queer-related issues because, one, it's interesting, and two, you have the right to know your own history, and it's important to know.
I want to thank the both of you so much for sharing really something that's a very personal subject. If anyone is feeling like they're in crisis or looking for resources, the Trevor Project is there for you. It will be in the show notes. It is 1-866-488-7386. Or if you prefer, you can text GOT5 to 741-741 to start a conversation. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us best on Instagram at the_bar_exam, or we are now on YouTube at The Bar Exam. Again, thank you so much, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of The Bar Exam.